September 14th, 2017, around 1 o'clock. Checking out the update on the Spring Creek site. Cameron Hurst, our observer extraordinaire. The St. Bonaventure Connect, they wouldn't miss an opportunity. This is a little entry point. This is all new. Cleared out. For a view of the broken straw. Thank you, Keith Jackson.
Oh wow, so that's the...
Front doorsteps. Down to the broken straw. Ever been here before?
I've been in the area, but I have never gone to where the site is, where his home was. But have heard a lot of things through the Craig Hills and through, especially for Mary. She was the daughter of Robert, and and of course I was raised during World War II. I was born in '32, so I've been through World War II and remember the Nuremberg trial and all the things that happened at that time. And you know, it's amazing to me that the things that happened and all the things that are going on in the world today, that they don't reflect on the things that happened before, because and somebody once said, if you don't pay attention to history, you're bound to repeat it. And I would hope that we would repeat it. Some of the
that good stuff.
The good stuff, exactly.
Was she?
And just as common every day.
Yeah.
How did you come to know her?
Well, we were involved in horses, and they
Okay.
came to camp every summer, August, for a month or so.
They were looking for horses to rent.
So they used one of ours, and then Gib got him one from Miracle Mountain Ranch, and that kind of started it. And I always had a big garden, and they loved fresh, so they thoroughly enjoyed reading my garden.
With Bowden, he wanted to go, he was a great person to do canoeing and everything. And we went down the Broken Straw and went canoeing. So, yeah, we had a little camp up on top of Turner Hill, and they enjoyed it. It was, to look at it, you'd say, well, why would people who live in a metropolis like they live in Washington, D.C., why would they like to come here?
And it was really rustic. They took a shower with cold water that came down from
As a young person and everything, they used to come here. And
grew
of course,
up every summer here.
and she was a horse person. She loved the horses.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, I was a horse person too, and so we had a common bond there. You know?
Have any of you seen the picture of Jackson? It's a headshot, at least the part I saw, with the horse. And he's looking up, and that he is delighting in that horse. And that horse is delighting. I mean, they were friends, you could tell. I saw it once at their house. I went to visit him on my way back from Virginia.
Yeah, when they lived in Washington, D.C. She was...
And I love a picture of that. That was so just unique.
Yeah, a lot of times they just get on the horse and trail ride, go up through different areas, and they just, matter of fact, they had a pasture built a fenced pasture out there where they could turn the horses loose. And the horse that we rented them first time was, well, I didn't want to rent her, just said take them, but they insisted on paying for them, you know, of course. But first, the horse's name was Willoughby. She loved that horse.
Yeah, she did.
They purchased the property off of a fellow by the name of Bob Cafferlin.
Mm-hmm.
You interviewed Bill Cafferlin.
Yes.
That's the brother of Bob.
Okay.
They were twin brothers, as a matter of fact.
Well, we have got a kick out of her husband, the one that passed away in an
Yeah.
accident. He loved Swiss chard, and when he come out to my garden and he could get Swiss chard, you thought you'd give him $1 million. He'd just be so thrilled. That always amused us.
I love the Stewart Bridge. Outstanding.
referred to as the Spencer Road, and I don't know why it became named the Spencer Road, because I think the Jackson homestead was the most prominent place here. And you were able to drive right over top of the bridge very, very easily. It was, I mean, just like if you were on 426 or higher road. I mean, it was, you couldn't tell the transition at all. There wasn't this big drop off. And you came down here, there was the road that went around to the crossing at the farmhouse that Jack is now living in, which was a forge across the creek. But here, the road actually went straight out almost through the middle of the field, and then it cut over to the corner here. There is a second field over there, and it ran along the side of that road, and cars drove on it regularly in the 60s and 70s that I can remember. And it crossed Spring Creek again. There was a real nice gravel forge there. I mean, the water was probably 6 inches deep at the highest. And then it went up onto Cemetery Road, right where the bridge is closed now. And then at the end of the field, it kind of swung along the side of the hill there, and there were several old camps that were back there. But the main road went right up to the house here, barn on one side, house on the other side, where that first little highest tree thing is. I believe that's the remnants of the lilac bush, and everybody would come to see the lilac bush. It was gigantic and just awesome. And then there were 4 large white pines. There's 2 remaining. And it was just a spectacular view of the house. And there weren't all these weeds and stuff here. It was all kind of like grass from the same stuff that they would grow in the field. So you had a lot more of a view in every direction. The cockfights used to happen on Sundays, probably late morning into the afternoon. And you would hear, the bridge here had the planks on it, I think they were probably about 2 inches thick, and you would hear the cars going over them because they would rattle, you know, and you would hear the bum, 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 bum. And as soon as you would start to hear the first 3 or 4, you know, then it would be like an endless supply. And they would go straight out, like right where the little spot out there where most of the pines are. And that happened for years and years and years. I don't remember exactly why it stopped. I was probably about 8 or 10 years old when that happened. But I just remember that something terrible happened, whatever it was. And the police put an end to it like one day, and that was it. It was no more. The bridge was always known as the Spencer Bridge. There was a plaque on it. The plaque said 1908. The plaque was removed at one point in time.
Before they bought and built their little A-frame up on Turner Hill. But at that time, I think the Mortons owned the place. Dot Morton, who was some kind of distant relative, I think. And so they had the place in the 60s. And I do remember a bit of a road heading out toward the far field. And we pitched our tent up there. There was a little stream coming down, and so.
So Tom, do you remember House and Barn when you were
Yeah,
a kid and pitching
the house was still there when the Mortons had it.
Woo! Wow.
Tell me how different this is.
Oh gosh, was that ladder there the whole time?
No, that's a tree stand.
Oh, okay. No, I just meant I wasn't there when we were here.
No.
Gosh.
There was a wonderful milk house that was here, and right in this opening here was where they would bring, I guess it was the livestock, into the lower part of the barn. There were some stalls and stuff in there. When you came part there, it was kind of like a ramp into the main part of the barn. It had very large doors on pulleys or wheels or something, but they were, I mean, it was made so well that as a kid, 8-10 years old, I could push it open all by myself. You walked in, and this side of the barn had a loft on it, and The rest of the barn was open all the way across. It had big, gigantic wooden beams, hand-hewn, probably about the size of these rocks here. And the kids would go up on the loft, and I don't remember who was good enough to do it for us, but somebody had hung a rope in the center of the barn from the ceiling, and we would actually get on the loft, and you could swing all the way across the barn. So it was wonderful. Wow. A lot of corn cobs that were left, you know, very, very old. So we would have corn cob fights, and it was a lot of fun. They had some Halloween parties here. Adults had some Halloween parties here in the late 60s, early 70s. They were a little on the wild side. Just impressive, stately building. And it was the way that you see in the natural wood that's been faded for a long time. And then the barn, like everything from the barn just faced towards the house there. And this is the back door of the house. Across there, so it's just a very short distance to walk from one to the other. It was easy to understand as a kid, you know, that this was definitely where they brought the livestock in. And like I said, I think those poles there are the things where they actually had the, and I don't know what they're technically called, the like stables and stuff where they would keep the animals. Wouldn't hold a lot of animals, but probably a couple of dozen. And then, as I said, it was probably, oh, and here it is right here, part of the track for the doors. And the doors, it was kind of like right here where the main entrance, where they probably, that's probably how they brought the hay and everything up into the barn. But that was, you know, that was, and the barn was just, I remember it being incredibly tall. And then there's some remnants of the silo there.
So it would be your mom, your stepfather, Julia, you?
Yeah.
Would Bob come up here too?
Bob came up. The most vivid recollection I have is spending a week here with Julia, Mom, and Bodie.
Yep.
And they were here 2 weeks. But you know, it was true camping, tents and light your own fires and stuff. Bodie was a very accomplished camper, and my mother was a very avid camper, and used to come up here with her father, of course, and just camp out and, you know, hide from civilization for a while.
We were in Spring Creek Church, and he used to have his meditation and come down here in the pasture, in the we call it the meadows.
Meadows?
And he'd often talk about how peaceful it was down here and how what a wonderful area it was.
Was that Preacher Bodine?
Bodie.
Bodie.
Different homes that were tore down and things like that had sandstone basements in them. And you see a lot of these cut stones around. People use them now for decorations around their property. And that when they tore the buildings down.
And the fact that it's cut as opposed to these large field stones, which you sometimes do see in foundations, you know, sort of indicates that there was a lot of care and a little bit of money that went to constructing this, because you could really, you know,
it was all hand hewn. I mean, they had their tools that they made the stones and made them the size they wanted and everything else.
I'd say probably like right around in here, before it dropped off, they regraded it 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when they started planting the field.
But sometimes they built, you know, a house, and part of it was the basement, and part of it just had kind of a crawl space underneath. So it wouldn't be unusual to have, you know, a kind of a gable end or whatever. And I have to see the pictures again, and then have another wing on the side of it. That was, you know, not so deep. But obviously, I think this being kind of main part of the house.
A wooden stairway down to the basement. View, unobstructed, just like it is now, of the bridge and the stream there, and like I said, the big pine trees that were here, and I mean, it was gorgeous.
And they opened this up last. Well, we lived up on top of the hill in a mobile home when we were living there, because we didn't know whether we wanted to build or not. And then Dutch Sickler, did you remember him? Wallace Sickler, Dutch Sickler.
Okay.
That lived. There was the brick house
on the left, and then there was another white house. That was where his dad lived, and then the next house is where he lived.
What we obviously want to do is come in here with the total station and make sure that we can get a good record of this foundation, the location, and all the visible structures on the surface, and also some topographic points, so we have a sense of the relief around the site. General sense. I think then we'll make some decisions about perhaps where we can put some shovel test units, and I think there are lots of possibilities for that. Given what I've learned today, and we've all learned today a little bit about how this house may have been used, I think maybe another review of the historic photographs that we have, and some recollection of where things might have taken place. I think we'll want to do a shovel test pattern both around the house, but also maybe over this landform in general, just to sort of get a sense of what we might find, what different parts of the property were used for. I think the artifacts will give us a good idea about that. I think from that evidence, we're going to have a lovely picture of what life was like in this house. I think we're going to find artifacts from a lot of periods, and I've just been learning about how the site was occupied by many owners at many different times for many different reasons. And I think it won't just be the Jackson Memorial, it will be the palimpsest of this home and this homestead. And I think the archaeology will reveal that nicely. I'd like to certainly come along. We'll bring some historians and maybe someone who had better knowledge of 19th century historic architecture, take a look at this foundation a little bit, and maybe add some bits to our knowledge as well. So I think that there's a lot to be said here for the property, and I think there's a lot that we can do. So I think we want to map it, total station, topography, and visible structures, map and barn, and we'll do a program of shovel test pits, perhaps at intervals, but also some targeted ones in certain areas that I think would tell us a clear story.
What do you need from us to keep that ball moving? Anything?
Well, one thing I think I'd definitely like to do is to have a look at the artifacts that you found when you were here the last time. It would be nice to sort of see what has come from the property before. Beyond this amazing job that they did clearing, really, I think nothing more. I think we'll want to take a good look at the deed records, the deed search that you did in the history of the property. I think we'll definitely want to do that to give us a little bit of historical context. But beyond that, I think just if people want to come out and play in the dirt with us at some point, that would be good. It's the site of a historical figure. It's an important place in the community. So I think that we want to get as many people involved as possible if they wish to be involved. Either we're having an open day, perhaps. I think once we finish, we'll be able to have some open days and talk about what we found. Have some exhibits at the Jackson Center. People kind of walk across the property and see what we're doing when we're here working. I think that there are a lot of opportunities to get the public involved too. I mean, I think that would be a great help for you guys to kind of publicize this and work with us and think about. And again, with the property owner's permission, of course, it would be nice to to have the public involved at least to some degree, even if it's an open day or something.
If you were to look at a crystal ball timeline.
Crystal ball timeline. I was just having this conversation a little bit earlier. I think it would be nice to maybe kind of come out. I wouldn't mind bringing out some students from our intro archaeology class. We're always looking for places that are close by that we can kind of drive out in the space of 3 hours and play around a little bit and come back in a 3-hour lab. So I think we might want to bring our intro archaeology class out here just to look around, maybe put a few holes in, or just to look at some mapping. And then I think I talked about maybe having a student or two work on a senior thesis for this project, and so maybe we can kind of begin that work, the real kind of serious planning for that work this fall, but with a commencement of that probably next spring, and then for the following year. So maybe next early spring and summer would be the kind of I think major excavation that would be taking place maybe into the fall while the weather still holds. And I think that would probably be, and mapping maybe this fall or early spring.
Apples to eat. The crick kids come and jump on into and cool off.
Here we go. 12 degrees.
Yep. There's some,
So it looks like this is it, huh?
I think Mr. Morton could have dropped that there and dropped another 100 yards up.
sale or reuse of this bottle.
Well, this is good. I mean, it will be easy just to, there's some stuff over there too. I think.
All right, we got sites 1 and 2, Art.
All right.
Yeah, we didn't find too much
got
more
old Dubai and new Dubai.
downstream.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here.
That was Keith's commission. That's all he wanted. There it is.